All right, welcome. We're here. This is actually half the metaphysical fat because Sam's not here with us today. We love you, Sam. We miss you, but here we are. Hey, it's just me, Kirsten, and I am here today with someone he's so brilliant, and I am really blessed to have some really brilliant friends and to know some really brilliant people. And Alpine is one of those people. He's so brilliant, and we're going to talk today about his the LIvella, which is on YouTube, and there is a link to that in the description if you want to go and check that out. But that's how we're going to start out, and it's been something that is really interesting to me for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into as we go on. But anyway, welcome, Al. Hi.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, Kirsten. It's very much appreciated. I suppose you could call yourself, if Sam's missing and it's only half the metaphysical fat, I thought that maybe you could call yourself the metaphysical semi-skimmed or something.
Excellent idea. That's what we're calling it. All right.
If ever there's just one of you, then it's the metaphysical semi-skimmed.
I love it. See what I mean? Okay, here we go. So Al, first of all, just maybe you just want to get in and tell us a little bit about the LIvella. I've been raptly listening to it and waiting for the next.
Okay, well, yes, I'm happy to fill you in on that. So the LIvella is an audio story that I write and narrate myself. It's 100% organic. I feel you have to say organic these days when it comes to creative writing, because I think there's a lot of AI kind of enhancements going on. So I've taken to using it, and I do suspect it might catch on, actually. But anyway, so the LIvella, it's basically what it was. I was going through in the summer, I was going through a period of extremely lean, shall we say, employment and work opportunities. And I was very kindly sponsored by Andrea Lyman to do the to do a sponsored story, on something that she would like. She wanted a story about the fairy folk, and I decided to put it in Atlantis. It seemed to sort of make sense to me. It seemed to resonate, and I gave it the title The LIvella because at the time I was starting to think of the idea. It was the early summer here in Austria, and I'd taken to going on regular walks along a very nice bit of canal, sort of, with sort of green banks on either side. And this summer it was exceptional for the number of dragonflies, which were in sort of May and June. The number of dragonflies which were just literally swarming around the canal was exceptional. I've been here in Austria for 13 years and I'd never seen anything quite like it. And the actual, the word for, and of course they do have this fairy-like quality, don't they, dragonflies? They've got their sort of quadruple wings. And the word for dragonfly in German is actually Libella. So, I thought, well, okay, so, but actually I realized it's perfectly reasonable to suppose that these are fairies in disguise, and that really this is the only way that we can see them in this particular day and age. And
I'm glad you said, because I would say that. Keep going. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I spent some time amassing a little bit of a backstory and a story arc. But the thing is, it was never intended to be like, I certainly didn't have the time, because I wanted to, I was being offered a little bit of money to just do an episode at a time. And, and so there wasn't really time to write the whole thing and then worry about. So I'm really just just making it as good as I can, one episode at a time. I have an overarching story idea, a story arc, and I've got copious notes about the sort of the backstory as my imagination sort of feeds it to me, and the various details about the characters. But that kind of grows with every episode, and so that there's been 7 episodes so far. Each one is about 15 to 20 minutes long. And Gary from the Quantum Bridge has very kindly given a wonderful intro. Just like I always really enjoy your intro for the metaphysical facts as well. It's the same guy who did that, and very well he did it too. I'm extremely pleased with it. So shout out to Gary there. Thank you. And
yes, we love you, Gary. You're great.
Yeah. Well,
seriously.
Now, it started off the first few. I reeled off the first 5 episodes in 5 weeks, bang, 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 week after week. But it does take a lot of time, and it started to get slower simply because I'm having to think a lot. Now I'm deeper into this world now, and hello, I'm having to think a lot harder, and I'm very concerned with quality, so I don't release it unless it meets the style. I mean, I know I wrote it myself, but I'm very particular about this. I won't release it until it's as good as I can get it to be. And in between episodes 7 and this one, which is on its way, I kind of realized I had to do a lot more backstory about the calendar that the Itlan, the Atlanteans, because it's set in the early peak of Atlantis, about 5,000 years before the collapse of Atlantis, at the beginning of the Age of Libra, which is about 17,000 years ago. And so it's sort of, it's about 5,000 years before the Great Flood, and the sinking beneath the waves. And in time, I hope to sort of steer towards giving a glimpse or an inkling into how I perceive what could have happened there, at least in my timeline. And what I have had to do in the last few weeks since the last release is basically I've had to tweak or even radically alter the calendar that we use, because they wouldn't have used months like, June, July, August, September, October. They wouldn't have used those. And in fact, they would have had a very different calendar indeed. I'm not going to give away too much in the way of spoilers, but I can say this. Those who have listened to it may have noticed that I mentioned a couple of times a very bright star in the sky that they call Tiamat. Did you notice that?
Yes. Reminded me of Tiamat. Yes.
Well, it is. No, Tiamat is just the corrupted, but that's what we call it today because we're very far removed from those times, and it's been corrupted over time. It's actually Tiamat, and Tiamat was the water planet, which sadly is no more, but it was a very bright fixture in the sky at that time, and of course its motion. And its very existence obviously has massive implications on astrology and astronomy, as it would have been then. The Atlanteans were advanced enough to have been keen astronomers, and they would have followed the motion of the planets. And Tiamat was the brightest of them, and so would have had a tremendous impact on their culture and festivals and things like that. And so I've had to dive into that a little bit before proceeding any further. But I hope to get an episode 8 out, hopefully this coming Friday, but if not, then certainly by the Friday after that.
Yay! Good. I've been waiting for it. So you had mentioned to me when I had talked to you about it before that when you write it, you are actually able to access that realm, like you actually go into it. And I do that too when I write, and I found it really interesting because I'll expound on why I found it interesting. But for one thing, I just found it interesting that and I know you do that imagination workshop. And so you probably have a lot of really cool ways to get into that. But can you maybe just expound on how you get into that place to see it so clearly? Because when I listen to it, I can see it too. And it amazes me.
I'm really glad to hear that you can see it too. So that's what I want. That's the aim. Definitely, it's not always easy because it works a little bit like, for me, in my own mind's eye, it works a little bit like a VCR recording with a bit of a temperamental remote control. You know how sometimes you can press play and you want it to go forward and it's stuck, and it can be like that for days and sometimes weeks on end, and it won't go forward. And then at other times you press play and it works, and I can fully see events unfolding in for several characters. I just need to orient on, right, okay, so what's Mali doing at the moment, what's Ruzavir doing at the moment, and then you press play and you can go down their little reality tunnel. But then only so far. I can only go so far before it stops again, and I guess I need time for the extra bits or the next bits to download in the limited bandwidth of my subconscious.
Interesting. And so one of the reasons that really interested me was because I actually have had some past life memories, and I don't really know what past life memories are, so I'm not going to say for sure because I really don't know. It could be imagination, it could be actual past lives.
Why are
I've
the two
also
things
heard
mutually exclusive? Sorry to interrupt you, but I don't
right,
think it's necessary. Because the implications of infinity. Because I think of it in terms of infinity. I mean, you've either got if everything is finite, then you have to explain what its limits are, and then you have to deal with the concept of nothingness, and nothingness ipso facto cannot exist, because if it does exist, then it ipso facto doesn't exist. So the implications of infinity are, if you're imagining it, then somewhere in infinity, I mean, even if you use words like it has or it will be, and even those are redundant things. It's in the potentiality, and yeah, perhaps your imagination is what coalesces it or renders it somewhere to be experienced. Sorry.
yes.
Anyway.
Oh, you're fine. That was perfectly put, and thank you for saying that, because it really, I agree with you. You're right. So I've seen these things in my past life memories, and one of the things that just hit me immediately when I was listening to the LIvella was your description of the Moraz, because I swear I have been there, and I was like, wow. Whoa! The only thing the words on the wall, which you talk about how you're not supposed to look at those because they're, which I also want to get into, because that seems really symbolic of a lot of things. But
well, yeah, it's supposed to, yeah. It's supposed to evoke. It's supposed to evoke very much. You see, the thing about the Moraz is that it exists outside of time, so it's got characteristics to it which anybody from any particular point in time in history, I mean, they're going to interpret it differently. I mean, if I was in the Moraz, I'd be looking at those and thinking it's just a big. The walls are a big display screen. It's like an internet. It's like an endless, big screens of an internet or something. But what would someone from Atlantis see it as?
Yeah, that's a good question. And but it was really interesting because I was like, I have been here. And then when you started talking about Mali, the Hierophant, I was just like, I know these people. I have been in this, and I can't even describe it, because the memories that I've had of that time actually include a friend of mine. Well, actually include Sam. But they're like, but they're not really solid. Like, I can't go for a whole event. Like I have these memories of us being underneath in this place that was like the Moraz, and we were meeting, and we had the walls were lit with those, they were just, I don't know how they were lit. There's something like at the base of the walls that just, and all of that. And so when I first was hearing you described the Moraz, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been there. And then you described the Hierophant. I was like, oh my gosh, I know this person. And maybe not this specific person, but I know this energy, and I know this whole hierarchy. It sounded so freaking familiar. And and like the memories that I have, I'm like talking with Sam, and I have this robe on, and we're wearing these really lovely robes, and we're speaking in secret, and it just was very interesting. So
Wow.
So that was the first thing that just, I was like, whoa.
Were you priestesses of nothing by any chance, or were you one of the other denominations? Yes. Because they're not the only ones, that there's. We've only really met the priesthood of nothing, because nothing is paradoxically worshipped in Atlantis. You see, you'll know this, but for anyone listening, you have various hierophants in the capital city of Itlancor, and they basically they don't worship gods in the way that people started worshiping gods later on in the human experience. They kind of more worshippers of concepts which you could argue later became egregores, which were recognized as gods. But that is, I see that as an inevitable consequence of of this kind of way of doing things or way of conducting society. And it had, in its infancy, it was much more nebulous than that, anyway.
No, that's beautiful. I'm glad that you went there, and it takes us back to that whole, nothing. As we start out. So yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, we were high priestesses in these memories that I've had, but I couldn't even tell you what our beliefs were, or what we were even doing. but we were, and so yeah, and I want you to expand, because we had talked before about how you're going to put more of that religion into the LIvella, and so can you tell us a little bit more about that, because I find it really fascinating.
Well, I know a little bit more from what I've kind of explored in my own mind's eye with my own imagination, But it's like exploring a map or drawing a map as you go along yourself. I only really explore what I need for the next part of the story, And so obviously, there's a lot more than what's been revealed in the first 7 parts. But as far as the priesthood of nothing is concerned, it's certainly going to be the most paradoxical of them, simply because, like I said before, the thing about nothing is that if it exists, it doesn't. And I've always wanted to say, if I ever meet a real nihilist, someone who's, because they've always, for some reason, they've always slightly, I don't know, triggered is probably too strong a word, but they've always slightly wound me up a little bit when I hear this nihilistic attitude of, you're a long time dead, and you only live once, and it's like you're just what is it? All dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, have these? I would like to ask a nihilist. Does it please you or annoy you that nothing doesn't exist? It really doesn't, because you can't win, because if you insist that it exists, then it's not nothing. And if you agree that it doesn't exist, then what are you being so nihilistic about? It's just grow up. You know, it's like it's fine to be all gothic and you know, wrist slashing and all this kind of stuff when you're in your teens, but you know, it's you know, grow out of it. It's not edgy, it's not big, it's not clever.
Oh my gosh. I am similarly a bit wound up by people like that, and I need to write this down.
But I love them really. I love them really. I take the piss out of them in a brotherly kind of way, you know.
Which is the best way to do it. I love it. So I also, you know, your characters are great, and you brought the dalliance in. Is it episode 6?
Yeah, episode 6. Yeah.
I love that guy. I'm
really glad you're the first person to give me some feedback about the dalliance, because I definitely want him to be charismatic. Anyway, carry on.
Oh, it's great. Well, and I thought, you know, he's the closest thing to you putting yourself in the story too, I thought, in a way, because he really reminds me of some of the things that I've seen you say. But at first I was like, it was almost like he had stepped out of, you know, Much Ado About Nothing or something. I was like, he's coming from some kind of a Shakespearean comedy kind of guy. And I adore him. So, and then when he says, oh, I'm not really this good looking guy, I'm a fat old wizard just in disguise. And I don't know, it really resonated with me.
Well,
and
the thing is, he doesn't take himself. The reason why he's charismatic is because he doesn't take himself too seriously. So, you know, is he being self-deprecating, or is he really a fat old wizard? You know, no, he's actually not. No, he's a young guy. It's his first job. He's 28 or something. It's his first job after qualifying as like a mage, and you know, he just wants to be disarming. Basically, that's what it's all about.
He really is. I think he's brilliant. I love him, and I just when you introduced him into I was just like, oh, I love this. I love this. So. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because I love that guy. So
he's got an interesting backstory as well.
Does he? Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it.
And I don't know if you caught it. He's the one who's been charged with escorting the young guy, the teenager, to you know, to the seer school. So
yes,
clearly things are hopefully, you know, if you follow, you realize things are starting to come together. You know, you've got Omnia who's going to the same place as the Dalliance is going. She's going for her own for this naming ceremony, which she's got serious misgivings about because she doesn't really trust Mally, and she's got to hand over this mysterious thing, and she's got her own story about her, you know, her boyfriend who got sort of killed rather tragically by dryads by mistake. And yeah, their paths seem to be converging, and also converging with this young fellow who's a root man who is actually a seer who keeps having these dreams about LIvella, and obviously needs to explore that side of things.
Ess.
Meanwhile, their baby brother is going to be kidnapped by these sort of blood magic practitioners.
Yes, when I saw that coming in, I was really upset. But it's
not all going to go well. It's not. It might not be quite as brutal as Game of Thrones, but it's definitely not all going to go well. That's all I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, it couldn't, because then there wouldn't be a story, right? Yeah. So, you know, even that though, I really took to, you know, because of course we've all, well, a lot of us, maybe not all of us, have been down those rabbit holes of, you know, what certain groups of people in this world do with blood and babies and so forth. And so I really saw that going on, and I was just
Well,
like, oh my God.
I mean, that's kind of it. I definitely want to bring that into it, so that if normies read it, I mean, by normies, I mean people who aren't into the kind of, they're not necessarily into Atlantis, and they're not into the things that are behind the veil, I should say. I don't mean it in any weird or pejorative way at all. If they do chance across it, and it's I think I've had my own mind opened, or the way paved by the fantasy and science fiction writers that I used to read when I was growing up. They stretched my mind and they stretched my imagination, and they made it possible to have for me to have a wider vista of possibility. And many, of course, when I was growing up, used to say things like, you've got your head in the... I've got a memory, actually, when I was about 10 years old, the whole class, the teacher had gone out, and the class managed to get one of his drawers open to have a look at his notes about the whole class, and he was a really good teacher and everything, but he'd got little comments next to each name, and I had a look, and obviously I looked at my name, and across it, and all he'd written next to it was "in another world!" ! I don't know if he meant it. I think he might have meant it in a good way, but also in a slightly exasperated way, because he wanted me to do sums and things, and I was in another world. So,
yeah, I get that, having also been one of those students. But I think it's a wonderful thing to say about someone, really. I mean, because
actually,
clearly, if we choice about where we want to be, it wouldn't precisely be where we're at now. Although I suppose we did make that choice, so I guess I can't really say that. But
so why did I counter that though? It was something about, that's right. It was something about having your mind stretched by because I was in another world a lot, and because I was daydreaming so much, and reading fantasy and science fiction and things like that. It kind of made me more able to not, to not swipe things off the table. It's just like it's lots of things are on the table. I mean, I might say about a lot of things, I neither accept them as coalesced truth or reject them. Almost everything is on the table for me. The only things that are off the table are things that I think don't really appeal to me, that I don't really want to have in my reality. If and then that's always up to subject to revision. If it gets shoved in my face, if I say, I'm not interested in manifesting reality where this is true or that's true, and then literally my face gets rammed right into it, then obviously I've been overruled by my higher self, and I just got to be a bit less of a dick about it.
Yes, I agree. So I don't even know where I had something weird place I was going to go with that.
Well, we were talking about the dalliance, were we? Or was it no? And after that, you wanted to.
Oh, yeah. No, I love it. There was something, I don't know. It'll come to me. But speaking of that, I was going to say, I think it's really good. That's one of the great things that good literature can do for people, is to broaden their horizons so that they can really, be able to get into a different mindset, because so many people are just in this little box. That's their belief system, and they don't get out of it. And I think literature, like something like the LIvella, can do that in a very gentle way, where it's not like somebody ramming a bunch, you have to think about this and you have to do this. And it's more like, it's just a story and it's fun, and we can suspend disbelief and listen to it without having to think of it as necessarily reality. But at the same time, it's opening our consciousness so that we're able to accept more things. And I'm like you. I mean, I have, everything's on the table for me too. And I'm not really sure about anything. I have things that I believe this is true. I think this is true, but I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, then I'll certainly be shown. And I'm okay with that. You know, I don't have to be right about everything. So,
I don't
but
even see it as right or wrong. It's like everyone can be right, but just in their own little time tunnels. You know, if people want to say, if all the, you know, because I'm always mocking the doom pillars, you know, on Twitter, and it's like I often remind them, it's like, look, you know, I mean, you could actually easily go down this tunnel of an absolute shitverse where I end up, you know, in an awful situation, or you know, or completely wrong, and then we'll both be in a gulag, and you'll be telling me, see, you should have been more black. But it's like, that won't be me. Don't you get it? That'll just be an NPC rendering of me, who is there to stroke your own ego and say, there, you manifested a shit verse, but at least you can be smug with this guy about it and say, I was right and you were wrong with your optimism. Don't give me optimism. We all know optimism is bollocks. See? But that won't be me. That will be an NPC rendering of me. I'll be somewhere much better than that.
I agree. And I think the same thing. And of course, that's why I love those posts that you make about, you know, it's like, and I'm always like, why do you want to manifest this? Why don't we think about something nice to manifest, something that we'll enjoy?
Don't disagree with them. Yeah, don't disagree with them. Yeah, fine. Yeah, you are a sovereign God in your own right. Manifest away. Enjoy. Sounds a bit shit to me, but you do you.
Yeah. That's right. That's good. So let's talk about the moraz a little bit, because in the LIvella, walking through the moraz, there are all these words on the wall, and if you follow the direction that the words tell you, you get lost, and you end up like Omnia, who completely out of time. And so why don't you just expound on what you were bringing forth with that?
That really, the moraz saved my, because I wasn't seeing a very good way to bring various elements that I wanted to tell together, or at least not very effectively. And then I perceived the moraz, and it all fell into place. Thank God for the moraz is really, it's an absolute, it's as a literary device, it's an absolute blessing, and it's got so much potential. You know, we barely even scratched the surface of it, because I mean, again, the implications. Well, you know, I mean, you can, you know, you're welcome to consider the implications yourself. You have this. You have this place, which is you could see it as a very much older even than Atlantis technology, because you know Mali went down right through all the ancient dusty kings and skeletons and mummies and things of her culture. Deep below that, and the moraz was there, you know. And it's timeless in a literal sense. It's that there is, it's an area, it's a stasis. It's like a labyrinth, which is in a stasis. It exists outside of time, which means it can be accessible from any point in time, and it can presumably also be exited at any point in time as well. But the person who's in it is not going to be able to exit it at any point in time. That there needs to be some kind of conscious direction, and that's where the astrotheology aspect of it comes into it, because in episode 2, Mali was very surprised to hear there was a LIvella at the center, and she was like, no, it's a scorpion and things like that. And if you look at the precession of the equinoxes, it's actually it's Libra after Scorpio, isn't it? But you know, in the retro, it's sort of retrograde. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's the case. Is it not?
I think. Yeah, I'm not. I think that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, I did. I'm pretty sure it is, because I did some research. If it isn't, I'm probably going to have to come up with some explanation for it after the fact. But so you have what happens is, you know, with the precession of the equinoxes, there is always some kind of being who consciously presides over the moras, but that changes with the precession of the equinoxes, with the changing of the ages, and it's a very vague thing, and Mali obviously still thought it was the previous age, or maybe the whole thing gets a little bit confused because of the events that are happening that we don't know about yet. But clearly, it's now a LIvella, and it said right at the beginning that obviously, we only talk about Libra nowadays, but this is 17,000 years ago. It wasn't a book then. It was the Libra. That Libra is actually a bastardization of LIvella, because the R and the L, but how it got bastardized and how they stopped thinking about fairies and started thinking about books. Maybe that gets explained in the story as well.
Yeah,
I can hear some of the more serious-minded astrologers just looking or listening on in horror at this absolute blasphemy that I'm spewing. But hey, it's just a story, or is it?
It's just a story, or is it? I'm not sure. It's just a story. Well, is anything just a story? Well, the thing is, though, that we don't even know if if it was the same zodiac anyway, do we?
Well, how can it? A zodiac, it comes from the Greek word zoe, which means life, and the other things in the zodiac are living things, are they not? A book is not a living thing, whereas a scorpion and a crab and a ram and a bull, all of these are living creatures. They are part of the zodiac. The book is very incongruous, I would say, within the zodiac, and so this needs to be addressed, and it will be.
I can't wait.
Might take a while. It might take a while to get to that bit, but I only have the dimmest. These are things that are way ahead, and I only have the dimmest kind of silhouette about those things. But if I get close enough, it'll start to look clearer, because I am a bit myopic. I think there's a very good reason why I'm very short-sighted. I think that's that in itself it might be some kind of thing that I chose to remind me,
to look right here, right now.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, I do think, that's where creation happens, isn't it? It's right here in this moment. And I really, I am just amazed that you're brave to just throw it out there like that, because I know with my own process of writing, I'm working on a novel, and I got all the way to the end, and then I was like, oh, wait.
I know. I wasn't for a long, long time. I wasn't brave enough.
Well, I'm impressed, and I think it's going to go really well. It has gotten off to a really good start. But yeah, I was going to say, when I get to the end of something, I wrote the novel, and then I was like, oh no, this doesn't work. This has to change. I've got to go back. And that's what I'm in the process of doing now, is going back and saying, okay.
I really can. I can so relate. Since I was about 14, I've been writing like just the volume. I have got in handwriting as well, in cursive. I have got literally manuscripts. 90% of which is just it's not worthy, but you go back to some of it and you think there's some gems in here as well, and it's such a shame that it never gets to see the light of day.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that's true. And I'm sure that's true with your writing as well.
It is. And I have, I did the same thing. I wrote by hand. I used to go, as a teenager, shut myself in my room and just sit there with my notebook and write stories. And And really, most of them are shit. I mean, they're not, plus they're,
I'm sure that's not
tinged
true.
with that teenage angst and silly
Okay, yeah.
stuff.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the immature, I mean, you do see the immaturity in your early writings, and
Yeah.
there are things that make you, but there's a freshness and there's a power and an optimism to. I mean, so when I read some of my earlier stuff, yeah, there's a lot of cringe stuff and like you just want to kind of express certain things that aren't going your way in a more favorable light, because
Yeah.
you're annoyed by how things aren't going how you want them to. But on the other hand, there's also there's a quality to what the imagination comes up with when you're really young, which is quite stunning in another way,
That's true. That's true. Because you're not, I know for me, like I look back and I wasn't as, I don't know, I wasn't as shaped by the world. I mean, now I'm not, again, I've gotten to the other side of that, but for so long, I was really shaped by what the world was telling me ought to be said and ought to be done and how, and that's something I really had to walk through in my early adulthood because it really didn't resonate with who I was. And it's taken me many years to get past to that point where I can step into that pure creation again and say, okay, it doesn't have to go the way anybody else says it has to go. It can be my creation, and my creation is not like anybody else's. And I had that when I was young, and then it, for years I didn't have that. And when I was in college, and don't even get me started on the writing programs, but they were like, it has to be this way, it has to be that way. And I was told that I was too optimistic and too positive by my literature instructors, because they're like, it's not serious literature unless everything is shit.
I get that from, because I'm obviously I was a college radio DJ as well, and I tend to like more cheerful and uplifting music as well. And a lot of people who are really also seriously into music look down at me for that. It's like, no, unless you're opening a vein and stabbing yourself in the head with a fork or whatever, and going on about, like sort of howling dirges about, about existential angst and everything. It's somehow not real art. This is art. It's only art if you suffer. It's just, I find, I mean, yeah, okay, fine. You can prefer that. That's absolutely fine. But it's this kind of condescension that comes with it, and I think it's the same as what you just mentioned with the literature. And I used to get it, but I also track it a lot in musical circles as well, or in music appreciation circles. Thou shalt not like a work of music unless it has only sold a maximum of 62 copies from a car boot sale in Rickmansworth or something. If it's been any more successful than that, hang your head in shame. You are not allowed to say it's good. It can't be good, can it? Because other people like it. And there's me. I was listening to I was so into the charts when I was a kid. I used to actually write them down in my diary, the top 10, until I was about, 16 or something. I used to actually, I was like, wow, and what's it? But then again, music was a lot better back then. I wouldn't be doing that now, that's for sure. Yeah. And there's Micah. And then I'm thinking, have I become one of these condescending bastards now? I don't know. Maybe I have.
Nah. No, I agree. I actually got when I went through my punk phase, because that was my era, the punk era, and there were certain bands, there were certain things that I liked that I could not admit that I liked because it was not cool. It's not cool to like,
and there was a uniform as well. There was a punk uniform, wasn't there?
Yes.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah, you have to shave one side of your head and wear black all the time and safety pin everything together. And and I did do a lot of that.
Now, I was too young to actually be into the punk movement, but I am old enough to remember it just about. I was a small child, you see, and it definitely had an impression on me because I have a funny little story about that. When I was about 5, which would have been in the late 70s, which would have been the height of the first punk wave, really. I remember one breakfast I had my toast and I put like some yellow lemon curd on one side and some red strawberry jam in the middle and some black Marmite on the far side, which is, like a real, not just a clash of colours, but of tastes as well. And my mum looked at me in horror and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm making a punk sandwich, man. Because I'd seen, I'd gone to the shops with my mum, in Stockport, just, 8 miles up the road where Mum used to do her shopping, for food. And I saw I'd seen these punks walking around with their multicolored hair and everything. And I was too young to be either, intimidated, or I just thought that they're really interesting. They look different. They look different from everyone else. And it must have made an impression on me because, and it's like, oh, they're punks, right? Okay. I keep hearing this word punks, okay, right. So I didn't really understand what it was all about, but I just knew that punks were colorful people. And so I wanted to make a punk sandwich for breakfast, a punk. Well, it was a toast. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
So that was my introduction to the punk world. I was a little bit, I was just a little bit too little. Well, quite a lot too little, but I was there in spirit.
You were there. Well, and a little bit, just a few years after, in the in the early 80s is when we really started getting the punk. And even then, I was very...
it was dead by then, wasn't it? Really, it was the New Romantics by the early 80s, at least in Britain. Maybe America was different.
It was the New Romantics by then, there, where you were. No,
Adam and the Ants.
The first... Yeah, Adam and the Ants.
Oh, no, I mean, when I was like, when I was in school, everyone was, all the little kids thought he was just amazing,
Well, he did have he had nice cheekbones. No, he was, we were into that. Although we all had Black Flag here, and a lot of the punks around where I was, Black Flag kills ants, because it was, it wasn't punk enough,
Well, of course, they said he was a sellout, wasn't he? Because he probably started off as a punk, but then he was like, I want to make a bit of money here. Who can blame him?
Yeah.
It's a business. It's like if you're business minded. But the thing is, he's still, just because you sell a load of records, it can mean you have no musical talent, but it doesn't necessarily mean it. And a lot of people have this attitude that, they're very binary in their thinking. It's like, oh, well, if we've sold more than 62 copies out of a car boot sale in Hampstead or whatever, then, you can't be that good, can you?
Well, it's true. They had that attitude here, and I hung out with a lot of musicians, and
me too. Later,
I hung
in
out
the
with
90s.
Musicians, and it was so it was very, In fact, I did get I got scolded one time for liking Neil Diamond.
My mum loved Neil Diamond. Oh, he's great. Honestly, I grew up on a diet. I grew up on a diet of people like Neil Diamond. I mean, yeah.
I did too. My parents listened to Neil Diamond. They listened to, they listened to the Beatles. They listened to Gordon Lightfoot. They listened to all these people, and
Elvis.
And it was very, Elvis. Yeah, actually, my parents didn't like Elvis, but I liked Elvis because I was kind of rebellious about it. But and we had the vinyl records, and they had a big console stereo, and I would lie in front of the stereo and listen to the records. And, that's what they had. They had Neil Diamond. They had, so I grew up on that and I really liked it. But, when I became a punk, I couldn't admit that I liked it. In fact, I actually hid a bunch of my record albums, and my friends would come over because I did not want them to see some of the record albums I had. And
yeah.
like,
I think we've all done that in our teens. It's like there's the censored record collection, and then there's
yes, the ones I don't want my friends to see. But it was all that really positive music, you know, all of that bouncy, happy music that they didn't like. And I really do think that that's an intentional thing. And I think it's the same thing in the literary department, because when I was in, you know, when I would workshop poetry, I'd workshop poetry and fiction in my college days. I was always getting counted down because my language was too elevated. And, oh, you rhymed. Why did you rhyme? We can't rhyme anymore. That's not, and all of that stuff. And like, I wrote a really, really irate paper about Ezra Pound one time because I was sick of people telling me my language was too elevated. I was like, why am I writing if I just have to write? Okay, you don't like my language, don't fucking read my book. I don't care. Yeah. But I'm not, and I actually finally met this professor who said, well, why would you want to write for stupid people anyway? Just keep doing what you're doing. But most of my professors were like, well, you know, it's a little bit elevated. Maybe you need to take it down. We need to make it for common people. And then they came out with the language poems, which don't even make sense. And that's more poetic than making sense and rhyming. And I'm like, you know, I don't understand this. Now I understand it because I feel like it was a program. And I feel like Ezra Pound came in specifically, and I don't know if you know much of his history, but he was in a prison camp, and he was, I don't know. And he was dreadful, a dreadful person. I not because he was in prison camp, but anyway, he said, we're going to give poetry back to the common people. So we're going to take away meter and rhyme. And that was not giving poetry back to the common people.
No, but it's a bit snobbish. It's like, the common people can't handle poetry and rhyme, you know. Yes. I don't know, maybe,
well,
Shakespeare didn't have any such scruples, did he? You know, he's like, I'll have people speaking this way. If they are like the common people, they won't. But I'll still have my. If it's like kings and things, they're going to be speaking in verse. You know, if it's good enough for Shakespeare.
Exactly. If it's good enough for Shakespeare, by God, it's good enough for everyone. But no, seriously, the thing was that didn't give poetry back to the common people because. Okay, I did a poetry reading one time it was a poetry contest, and we read our original poetry, and we had 3 judges that were not educated by the academic system. 3 judges that were not educated by the academic system. And you know what the poems they chose to be the best poems? The poems with meter and rhyme. And
good for them.
Because if you actually talk to people who were not educated and indoctrinated by the universities, that's what they like. When they hear a poem, that's what they remember. That's what they like. That's why they like the pop songs, because the pop songs are rhyming poetry with meter. And that's what they like.
Maybe it's a little bit like, you know how, the educated lot, the academic types. So it might not even be their fault in the art world. I don't know enough about the art, but you've obviously seen the difference between modern art and more classical art and things like that. And it's kind of the equivalent of that, isn't it? It's like, oh, let's make it so that, I think they just want to. I don't know. I think it's the Emperor's New Clothes, basically. That's what I think it is. Oh, this is just as good. A banana seller take to a war. Oh, wow.
I know.
It's the Emperor's New Clothes. There's a reason why that's a timeless fable.
Yes, you're right. There is. Well, and it may have to do with money laundering too. I kind of suspect a lot of those things have to do.
Don't get me wrong.
Like,
There are some great poems
he was,
that aren't rhyming and they aren't, you know, sort of metered and all this kind of stuff.
oh,
I'm not saying there
absolutely.
definitely is,
Absolutely.
but you know,
Yeah.
just it better be good, not like, oh well, you know, this is all so yesterday, you know, like, and this is why we can't have nice things anymore. This is why we have ugly monstrosity architecture and things like that. That's the same. It's modernity. It's the same. I would suggest.
It
I
is.
mean, to be honest with you, I haven't sat down and stroked my chin enough about it to really come up with a lucid argument. But I suspect it's symptomatic of the same kind of things that go through modernity.
I agree. I think it is. And I think a lot of it is deliberate, because think about it, you know, if you're walking in a city where all the buildings are really beautiful and nice, how do you feel? You feel really good. You feel upbeat. You feel like, yes, this is a place where I like to be. If you go to a place, and they call that type of architecture, that really modern architecture.
Yeah, you want to fight for it, but you know,
Yes.
if you live in a, and this is why I want to lovingly, going back to the story again, the LIvella story. It probably isn't for people who just want explosions and crash bang wallop. It's not going to appeal to, because I do want to linger on, you know, if they have filigree lampposts, or if they have these little hovertrams and the little crystal arrays they use for power,
Yes.
and I want to linger on these things. I want to paint a picture, and if people don't have the patience for it, so be it. I mean, it does make me a little bit sad if people just can't tune in or whatever. But this is what comes from within. So it's just too bad, isn't it?
It is. It's too damn bad. I like it. I love it. And that was another thing that really evoked past life memories from when I read that. And also the scene in the 7th episode where Omni is at the head of the boat. I have seen that. I have seen that before I heard you say it. And so what I wanted to say that I meant to say before, I feel like you're really tapping into a realm that does exist. I mean, obviously it exists if you can find it with your imagination, but I think it's a more solid, it has existed. I
see it really clear. But this is what the imagination thing is all about. I'm not lying when I do see it really clearly. It's just if I want to see it's just when I sort of pour myself back into it. What the reason why I don't generate material more quickly is because of this faulty freeze play button, which doesn't always go for. It's like, okay, I can see but it's a frozen. It's like, and I can't always know what comes next. I have an over in detail. I have an idea what happens on a universal level, on a much sort of zooming up the fractal kind of way. I kind of know but just going down into the minutiae, like Omnia and the Dalliance standing at the prow of a sea vessel, which is shaped like a giant manta ray, and it presses the water down and kind of convex. It has this kind of telluric power to it, which we don't really recognize or understand today. It's the same sort of power that would have been able to shift blocks to build pyramids. I'm not saying they did build the pyramids, but it would have been that kind of technology, and the same sort of technology as that they had, and they would have taken for granted it. They wouldn't have understood it either. That would have been for the for the experts, the craftsmen and the guildsmen of those times. They would have been able to explain how it works. But a high priestess of nothing and a sort of a mage, no, they wouldn't. It's not really. They're not interested. They're just just like us standing at the prow of a ship today. Might not be able to talk about some of us might, but might not be able to talk about the internal combustion engine or something.
Yes. Yeah, but I think that's how real creativity works too. You know, when you hit those blocks, because I'm very familiar with that. I'm very familiar with being in the flow and seeing it, and then suddenly it's like you press the play button and there's just nothing there. It's like, so I get that, and I think that that's how creativity flows. And I'm not sure. I mean, sometimes it's like you just have to be at the right place for it to come through, I think. And
I think you've got to be in the right frame of mind. You've got to be the right conduit for it. And that's the challenge for me at the moment, because frankly, I'm struggling to, to make ends meet, in this world where, you've still got bills to pay, and there isn't that much work coming through, and I might have to move to another country just to work and pay the bill and all this kind of stuff. And that is not a great conscious conduit through which you can actually press that play button and get the next bit. And
no, you're right, it's not. And that's one of the reasons why I think so much of our creativity is really, it's like it's put on this, like, so I think there's a certain force in this world that wants to funnel all of our creative energy into creating what it wants to create, which is not in our best interest and not in the best interest of the people that we know. Definitely. And I think that really, and I think it's a very deliberate thing, that it's very difficult for people who really have a great deal of creative force. And as you just said, it's not really about what you have. It's about being open and able to receive what comes through. And so your nervous system has to be in a very specific place for that to actually happen. And most of us walk around with our nervous systems constantly. We're always in the sympathetic nervous system, which is the looking out, the fight or flight nervous system, because at any time, stress does that to us. And that also is really destructive, because what that nervous system is actually for is if, you're being attacked by a tiger or something and you have to run away, or you need to turn around and kick someone in the mouth or whatever because they're attacking you. That's what that's for. And yet we're in that nervous system so much, and that is not the creative nervous system. That's not where we can create from a place of
exactly. But being able to like sort of describe with your mind's eye what the world looked like 17,000 years ago is not going to be a very good way of kicking someone in the mouth who's trying to steal your money off you.
Exactly. So you do need both. However,
no, I mean, I don't actually have I can be very ground. I've had periods of my life where I have been, very much in the thick of the most visceral kind of existence. I'm not, I'm very comfortable in that world as well, but it's just
yes.
As it was there, it's become less comfortable, hasn't it? It's become a lot less comfortable to be in the physical world, because there's more and more rules, and there's more and more regulations, and there's more and more, and you just, words fail me, honestly.
And if words fail you, then we're not. But seriously,
because right. I'd rather pronounce something nicer into existence,
So
that doesn't mean to say that, if I'm in a bar and someone's like sort of getting a little bit tasty, I'm going to go, no. I'm just saying.
That's good to know. No, I am the same way. I can defend myself if I need to. I try not to ever get into that place, but I know, and so my way of solving that was to move way out in the middle of nowhere, and that comes with its own set of challenges. But day to day, I'm not having as much trouble as a lot of the people I talk to with all of these rules and regulations. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they don't touch me when I'm here because I'm in the woods. And so I think a lot of what we all need to do is to think about ways we can create that kind of a space for ourselves. Even if it's in an apartment in a city, but just having that space where you can retreat to and say, okay, when I'm here, when I'm in this place. And of course, we can go within and do that all the time. But, if you're in the outer world and you're doing things, you can't just be,
Oh yeah, I'm able to do that like quite well. It's just like, when you're living from paycheck to paycheck and everything, I clearly haven't mastered that yet. It's one of the lessons which, some people have no difficulty in manifesting abundance at all. This is clearly one of my biggest challenges in this particular incarnation, and
honestly,
it is what it is.
Yeah, I understand. It's one of mine too. I have trouble, but it's weird because I realized recently I do manifest abundance. I just don't manifest money. And so
actually, yes, I'm a little bit like that. I've manifested, abundance in other ways, but never. It's never. The wolves are never far away from the door. It doesn't. It's not. There's no flow. It's like it's inconsistent.
I am the same way, and I've lived like that for a long time, and it doesn't appear to people that I live like that, but I really do. And so I really get that. And I've actually been doing a lot of healing around that. And I would be happy to share that with you sometime, because it really has been kind of a healing journey, because really ultimately what it is, I think, and I'm not to the point where I've got it down and I know what I'm doing completely, but it is a thing of going back and looking at all the times that you've been traumatized around money. And the one that I found recently was just being in this world and having to have money when I want to go over here and I want to do this thing, but I can't go over here and do this thing because I've got to go over here and do something I hate. And even that is a program, because ultimately, I was trained. When I was growing up, I was always like, well, I want to be a writer. And my parents were always like, well, that's great. You can do that on the weekend. You need to get a real job. Writing isn't a real job. And actually, that's just a program. Yeah. It's not really real. But then I realized just a few days ago, because I've been doing all this healing work on my abundance, I just resent so much having to make money to do the things I want to do. And that in itself is a huge stumbling block, because I'm walking around going, damn it.
It's degrading. Yes, it's degrading, isn't it? It's like, you feel like the universe is dangling a little carrot in front of you. And then every time you reach for it, it yanks it just out of reach. It's going, got you again, didn't I? Stupid little human. Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking of Adam Ant, he actually wrote a song called "There Is Always Room at the Top. Don't let them tell you that there is not." Sorry.
That's perfect. And it's true. And so it's really figuring out just the blocks that you have that keep you from accessing that. And so I've been working on healing my root chakra and doing all of these things. And then it was like, well, I still have all of these things in the back of my head just going, damn it, I don't want to do this. This sucks. And that's a stumbling block in itself. It's like stepping back and saying, okay, so maybe let's think about why we're happy to be here and what we can do, and stop resenting, because we are here. We're here right now. And I don't know why the fuck we came here, but here we are.
Yeah.
So what can we So let's let go of, damn it, I hate it here and everything sucks, and say, okay, well.
But that's just the only thing that, I can live with it. I can be philosophical about the really very dark things that are going on, because I've already kind of resolved in my own perception of reality, or cosmology, or philosophy, or whatever you want to call it. I've already resolved that the brightest light, it takes the brightest lights to cast the darkest shadows, and the darkest thing you throw at me, there's a part of me, don't get me wrong, I'm still, I'm mortal and vulnerable, and everything, but sooner or later, it's going to occur to me that the darkness is cast by the light. It can't, you can't, darkness cannot actually multiply itself. It's just an absence of something, and that's all very well, but then what really kicks in, of course, is you still got to chop wood and carry water. That's what it's all about, really, isn't it? It's oh, that's nice. Yeah. It's good that you've got this kind of Alan Watts sort of way of looking at it, whereas it's like, well, you can't just have up. It's like you can't just say, right, well, I don't believe in down. I don't believe in down. It's all love and light. I don't believe in down. I know it exists, but I don't believe in it. You've got to take the rough with the smooth. The sun's got to shine for it to rain. Blah blah blah, and all that's fine. But but you just think, why aren't I living in a more kind of jovial world? Where people aren't sort of constantly having to deal with all this psychological warfare and demoralization tactics. And that's the question, isn't it? And my way of dealing with that is to spend time in places like the Itlan world that I'm writing about. This is the flip side of that. This is like, right, okay, so we're in the down. That means there was an up, and it was like this. But other people have got different ways of doing it, obviously. Unfortunately, they don't pay, at least not for most of us. And
yes.
That's an injustice in itself, isn't it? I mean, or maybe it's a sense of entitlement that says, oh, it's an injustice, is it? You think you should get paid for it? It's like, well, I'm not greedy or anything. I don't want to drive around in flash cars and everything, but it would be nice to just be comfortable and to live in a degree of abundance, and yet I clearly haven't mastered that. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I haven't either completely out, but I'm on the verge of mastering it, though. By God.
But no, you could. Yeah, I tell myself that it's like you could. Everyone's seen that little meme where the miners are like it's a cross section of a mine being. There's this guy with a pickaxe, and there's a huge nugget of gold just like one millimeter away, and he turns around and goes, "Oh, I've been doing this for years. It's like it's hopeless." And he turns around and walks back, and literally, if he'd just done one more little pick with his pickaxe, he would have uncovered this massive golden nugget. I often think about that when I get despondent.
I do too. Not particularly that, but I think about Yogananda, my someone who's been very important in my life. That Paramahansa Yogananda said once, never stop trying to do that. Never stop trying, because you're right on the verge, and right at the point where you want to give up, that's probably when you're actually going to make a breakthrough, is when because even that, even the way this place is set up, it's like the minute you go, I'm not going to do it anymore, that's when you're really close to the breakthrough a lot of times.
Yeah, I just like, but sometimes I just want to rage against the universe and go, it's like, enough of these games. Do you have to test me every minute of every day? This is and hence the divorcing the universe thing that I've got on my own YouTube.
Yeah.
It's like, this is an abusive relationship that the universe has got with me. It's like, yeah, I'm testing you. I want to test you again today. No, you're nearly there, but I just got to test you a little bit more. Fuck off. Give me a break.
Seriously. No, I'm with you on that. And I do this, I have raged at the universe so many times. And I'm glad I live out alone in the woods, because I really do rage at the universe. And fortunately, I don't have anyone, living under my feet or above my head, hearing me shriek, "Ah, fuck you!" So I get it, and it is an abusive relationship, and we have been in an abusive relationship with the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, or the powers that were, we'll call them, for a really long time. And it's been so abusive that a lot of people don't even realize that they're in an abusive relationship, which I can say from
flee.
That's even better. The powers that flee. Love that. Yay. Yeah. Do you mind if I start using that as?
Oh yeah, I'd like that very much. Yeah, why not?
Right. I will. So yeah, and I think, so what I'm seeing really in the world even is this awakening, because I was in an abusive relationship that was just horrifically abusive. And I didn't even realize, I knew it was bad. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't really realize until I got out of it how bad it actually was. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now. That's what I'm kind of seeing in the collective. It's like, well, yeah, it's not that great. And no, it fucking sucks. Stand up, walk away from this shit. Because even
boundaries.
Set your boundaries. And one of the ways that we all need to set our boundaries is with these psychopaths that are, saying, oh, well, we're going to control everything you do. No, you're not. Fuck off. We're not doing that.
My answer to that would be, you don't even know who I am. And even if you do, I'll be someone else in exactly 1 millisecond's time. So what are you going to do about that?
It's true. Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Well, Al, this has been really, really fun.
It has. Yes, I've really enjoyed it.
We should do it again. Do you have anything you want to say in conclusion?
I'm never very good at these kind of things.
Never very good at that kind of
just
stuff, right?
Give the LIvella a chance. It's not all crash bang wallop, but it is building towards, it describes a world in which most of humanity are better than they are now. But of course, there were still bad people then, just in the same way as we live in a very dark period now, but there are still plenty of good people. It's just that they're the good people at the moment are the ones crawling around in the dirt, eking out a living, with the scraps. It's kind of turned on its head with the LIvella, You've got the dark ones are there, but they're the ones who are grubbing around in the dirt, eking a miserable living. But obviously they're still there, and we do encounter them as well, and it's if you like, it tries to explain or tell the story of the cusp, if you like, of where it kind of changed, it flipped over. It's a very slow ascent, or a very slow waxing of the evil powers, but I wanted to describe a world which was kind of in the if you like, the procession of the ages, which was 180 degrees opposite of where we are now. Well, not 180 maybe, but that's the idea, and how that would look, how that world would look, and what would experiences be like of the people living through that world. And of course, there would be much more sightings of higher frequency beings, simply because people were just or the average or aggregate frequency of humanity at the time was a lot higher. So yeah, they could perceive things like LIvella and dryads and things like that, and we will again, because these are processional and cyclical phenomena. And it basically tells the story, and I've I thought, because we need some kind of cultural milestones that we can relate to. So I oriented my own imagination on Atlantis, and but not not the Atlantis we think about, that kind of just succumbed to the waves and everything like that. Atlantis in the full glare of its peak glory, and the little speck of yin in the ocean of yang that was there even then. And so that's what I'm trying to paint a picture of with the LIvella.
And you're doing a beautiful job, I have to say. I love it, and I would recommend it. Y'all, if you haven't checked the LIvella out, please do. It's in the description. You can find Al's YouTube channel. And go there, give him a tip.
Subscribe.
And listen to the because yes, give him a tip. And because seriously, it's brilliant. And I used to think when I was younger, oh, I wish I knew all these really brilliant writers. And by God, I am now. I don't know why I'm saying by God today. I don't normally say that. That's a weird thing. But anyway.
But you should put your own stuff out there, be one of them, take the step.
Well, I am. I'm doing it. Yay. Yes, stay tuned for my first novel, which should be coming out within a few months. So it's not actually my first novel, but the first novel that I'm actually going to allow the general public to read.
May I ask about the genre or the general kind of idea?
Yeah, I don't really know how to put it in a genre. It's basically about spiritual awakening, and it's also about conspiracy theories. I mean, it's got all sorts of stuff in it. It's
cool.
It's a love story, but it's very the main thing. Really, what it is it's a manual for healing. It goes through. It's not really autobiographical, but it is. Factually, it's not autobiographical, but energetically,
in the sort of learning or lesson learning kind of way, perhaps.
Yes.
Well,
and
we write about what we know, of course. Yeah.
We do. We write about what we know, even if we're writing about sci-fi or whatever, or Atlantis. We're still writing what we know, and I think. So that's really what it is, and it's it's a very it's centered on a couple of families, and it's set actually where I live now, because I realized when I came here 20 years ago, well, I kind of knew it, but this is a whole different culture right here than anywhere else that I've ever been.
It's certainly, I mean, it looks stunning from the photographs that you share on Twitter. It looks lovely. Yeah.
It's wonderful. I would love to. I'd love to have all of my Twitter friends out for a bonfire sometime.
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. No, I am very blessed. I am very blessed to live here, and that's what I say. I have failed at creating abundance with money so far. I won't in the future, but so far. But I have created a space that is really wonderful.
That's worth more than just noughts in a bank account. Far more, isn't it? So you could look at it that way.
It is. And, my real wealth, I mean, I think about that because I've really been thinking about the whole idea of abundance and what it actually is wealth. And Sam said to me the other day, our wealth is our time and our attention. And that's really true.
Very
and that's
true.
what we're being, that's what we've been robbed of. And it's bringing that back. And when I wake up here in the morning, every morning I wake up here, I'm like, oh, wow. I just love to wake up here because, there's just birds and trees and my dogs. And I'm like, wow, this is so great. I love waking up here. And And so
That's a
it's
much more
really,
elegant expression of wealth, I would say.
it is. Thank you. I agree. It's like, and there are times when I go to the grocery store and I can only buy food for the dogs. Not that I'm starving. I'm not starving at all. But there are times when I'm like, well, I can buy some food for the dogs today. That's what I've got, and tomorrow it'll be better. But you know what? I'm really happy anyway because I have I live in a place that's just really wonderful, and it's a great. I'm very fortunate, and I gave up a lot to have this, but it's been worth all of it, and I wouldn't do it any other way. And I do think we all really need to start thinking about what our true wealth is, because it's not money. Money doesn't have any actual intrinsic value, which is another problem I have with it. Imagine another thing that keeps me from, because I'm like, it doesn't even mean anything.
No, well, the other thing, and this just shows how I've still got some way to go, because its main use for me is keeping the bureaucrats and the servants of Sauron from my door. That's really what I find it useful for, and render unto Caesar and all that.
Yes. So true. So, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. This has been so awesome, Al. I hope you'll come back on the Metaphysical Thought many times. And
I really enjoy it every time, and I'm really grateful that you invited me on again. And to just give space for my disorganized ramblings is a blessing in itself. So we can talk about abundance, and maybe that's a form of abundance as well. That I've even that there's even this opportunity with very such fantastic individuals such as yourself and Sam and the Quantum Bridge guys and others who I haven't mentioned right here, but perhaps I will one day in the future.
Yes, I agree. We do. And even though I know we've talked a lot about being shadow banned and everything else on the twit, as we lovingly call it, I really have been very blessed in the people that I've met here. Just brilliant people. And so that is abundance.
Maybe twit knows maybe it knows what it's doing. This is, again, this could be a form of divine emergence. Like, not yet. You think you're writing the script, you think you know what's best, you don't, and all these people who say, yes, well, no, there's no kind of a divinity expressing itself through new technology and everything. Well, why not? Why would there be a massive stop? You imagine, almighty, omnipotent God, and he's like sort of, he or she or or both or whatever, he's doing their thing, sort of creating things and everything, and pulling strings and levers and evolving and designing things and dreaming up new and better futures, and then suddenly the Godhead comes across AI, and there's this big stop sign, I can't go there. Shit. Damn, how did that happen? It's completely out of bounds to me, even though I'm an omnipotent, infinite God. Oh, well, I guess I'll just have to turn around and go back then. Okay. Your game now, AI. What sort of absolute crap is that?
Right?
It's just nonsense.
It's
laughable.
Really
it's laughable. So infinite consciousness. Oh no, it's all just out of bounds to me. That it's the kind of this AI world. I can't go there. I just can't. I'd like to, but I can't. What the fuck? Nonsense.
You are so right. You are so right. And I've complained a lot about the algorithm, but actually it's connected me with the people that I really need to connect with. And that's Yeah, I have actually found, a tribe here that I did not find anywhere else. So, so there is that. So thank you so much, Al, and thank all of you
Thank you.
out there listening. And yeah, we love you. And since Sam's not here to say it today, I'm going to say it. We'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kirsten.
I'm so sorry.